I'm Karen, 27, and literally last weekend, my rep as the family peacemaker? Yeah, it totally backfired. The strength I'd worked my butt off to build, trying to hold us together despite always being sidelined, it blew up into a full-on betrayal on a deserted highway during a road trip to my sister Marla's award ceremony. Marla, the golden child, demanded I just get over my pregnancy discomfort to keep the focus on her big day, and when I pushed back, saying I needed a break, the car went dead silent. You're ruining everything. My mom, Velma, snapped, with my dad, Norris, and brother Duane staring like I'd committed a crime. But here's the tea. Their cruelty didn't break me. It lit a spark. I'm not just fighting back. I'm about to flip the script and change everything. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, hit subscribe, and stay with me for the most satisfying comeback you'll ever hear. Looking back, it's wild what I did once that car door slammed shut. I've always been the odd one out, the one who didn't fit the family mold. Marla, with her perfect grades and pageant crowns, was the star, while I was the quiet one, the one who'd rather sketch in a notebook than perform for applause. My passion for art, the way I'd pour my heart into every line and shade, never mattered to them. Velma would barely glance at my drawings before gushing over Marla's latest trophy. Norris would mutter, "That's nice, Karen," then turn to Duane's football stats or Marla's acceptance letters. I learned early to swallow the hurt, to smile through the dismissals, because making a fuss only got me labeled dramatic. Last weekend's road trip was supposed to be a quick drive to Marla's ceremony, some big community leadership award. I was 8 months pregnant, my back aching, my ankles swollen, but I went along because Velma insisted it was a family event. The car was cramped, the air thick with Marla's perfume and her endless chatter about her speech. I sat in the back, wedged between Duane's gym bag and a cooler, trying to breathe through the Braxton Hicks contractions I'd been having. Nobody asked how I was doing, not once. An hour into the drive, the contractions got sharper. I shifted, wincing, and said, "Can we stop for a bit? I'm not feeling great." Marla rolled her eyes, her perfectly glossed lips pursing. "Karen, it's always something with you," she said. Velma, from the front seat, didn't even turn around. "We're on a schedule. You'll be fine." Norris just kept driving, his knuckles tight on the wheel. Duane snorted, scrolling on his phone. I clenched my fists, nails digging into my palms, and stared out the window at the blurring trees, willing the pain to ease. But it didn't. It got worse. Fast. By the time we hit a stretch of empty highway, I was gripping the seat, sweat beading on my forehead. "Please," I gasped. "I need a hospital." Marla whipped around, her voice sharp. "You're not having the baby now, Karen. Stop making this about you." I couldn't respond. Another contraction stole my breath. I saw Norris glance at Velma, who shook her head slightly. Then, without a word, he pulled over, gravel crunching under the tires. "Get out," Velma said, her voice cold. "You're holding us up." I stared at them, my family, their faces blank, expectant. My hands trembled as I opened the door, the hot asphalt burning through my thin sneakers. I stepped out, clutching my belly, and before I could say anything, the car peeled away, red taillights fading into the dusk. The highway stretched empty, a gray ribbon under a bruising sky, and I stood there, one hand on my belly, the other shielding my eyes from the dust their car kicked. The betrayal stung, but it wasn't new. My whole life I'd been invisible to them, my efforts erased, while Marla's every step was framed in gold. Flashbacks hit me hard, each one a reminder of how I'd learned to shrink myself. When I was 12, I won a regional art contest, my first real victory. I'd spent weeks on that watercolor, a stormy seascape that felt like my soul spilled onto paper. I rushed home, certificate clutched tight, expecting maybe a hug, or at least a "good job." Velma was in the kitchen, pinning Marla's debate team ribbon to the fridge. "Oh, Karen, that's cute," she said, barely glancing at my award before turning back to Marla's latest speech draft. Norris, sprawled on the couch, just grunted, "Don't clutter the table." Duane, 16 and smug, laughed. "Nobody cares about your doodles." I slipped the certificate under my bed, where it yellowed beside others they'd never see. High school was worse. I got a scholarship to an art program, one only 10 kids statewide were picked for. I told them at dinner, my voice shaky with pride. Marla cut me off, announcing her early acceptance to college. Velma's eyes lit up, Norris clapped her shoulder. "That's my girl," he said. Duane high-fived her. My news hung in the air unnoticed until Velma said, "Karen, clear the plates." I swallowed the lump in my throat, stacking dishes while they toasted Marla's future. Even small moments stung. At 19, I sold a painting to a local gallery, my first paid work. I showed Velma the check, a measly $200, but to me it was everything. She frowned, handing it back. "Don't spend it all at once." That same day, she framed Dwayne's community college diploma like it was a Nobel Prize. I stopped showing them my art after that, tucking my dreams into sketchbooks I hid in my closet. The pattern never broke. Marla's promotions, Dwayne's job at a car dealership, each got parades of praise. My graphic design gigs, my late nights freelancing to pay my bills? Nothing. I'd hear Velma on the phone, bragging about Marla's selflessness or Dwayne's hustle, while I was just Karen, who's fine, I guess. I'd bite my lip, nod through their slights, because arguing only made them double down. "You're too sensitive," Norris would say, and I'd retreat, my chest tight with unspoken words. Now stranded on that highway, those memories fueled me. The contractions were coming faster, each one a wave I had to ride alone. I sank to my knees, gravel biting my skin, and pressed my hands to my belly, feeling my baby's kicks. They didn't want me, didn't care if we lived or died out here. But I wasn't the kid hiding certificates anymore. I'd survived their neglect, built a quiet strength they couldn't touch. As another contraction gripped me, I whispered to my baby, "We're gonna make it." I didn't know how, but I knew I'd fight for us both. The sky darkened, and I scanned the empty road, my breath hitching. No cars, no help, just the hum of crickets and my own pounding heart. I fumbled for my phone. Dead. Of course. I laughed, a bitter sound, and clutched my belly tighter. They thought they'd broken me, but they'd only shown me who they really were. The gravel dug into my knees as I crouched on the highway's shoulder, each contraction a reminder I was on my own. The pain was brutal, but it sparked something fierce, a clarity I'd been building for years, a secret strength I'd forged in the shadows of my family's neglect. It wasn't a single aha moment, it was a slow burn, a quiet rebellion that started when I stopped begging for their approval and started trusting myself. Back in my early 20s, I'd hit a breaking point. I was working a dead-end retail job, my art dreams buried under Velma's lectures about practicality. One night, after another dinner where Marla's promotion to some fancy nonprofit was the only topic, I went home and stared at my old sketchbooks, pages of half-finished dreams abandoned because I'd let their voices drown out mine. I tore out a blank sheet and started drawing, not for them, but for me. That night, I decided I'd build something they couldn't ignore, not to prove them wrong, but to prove myself right. It was grueling. I took online design courses after shifts, my eyes burning from late nights. I saved every penny for a decent laptop, skipping meals to afford it. Freelance gigs trickled in, logos, posters, small websites. Each one was a brick in the foundation of my self-worth. I didn't tell my family, why bother, they'd only scoff. But every client email, every "love your work," was a spark, feeding a fire they didn't know existed. The real turning point came last year. A client, a small bookstore, loved my branding so much they recommended me to a bigger firm. That job, designing a full campaign, paid enough to quit retail. I'd sit in my tiny apartment, my belly growing with my baby, and work until dawn, not just for the money but for the feeling of being seen. I was good. I was enough. And nobody, not Velma's sighs or Marla's eye rolls, I could take that away. Now on that deserted highway, that strength was all I had. The contractions were relentless, coming every few minutes. I dragged myself to a patch of grass, my hands shaking as I tried to time the pain. My water had broken, warm, sudden, soaking my leggings. Panic clawed at me, but I pushed it down, picturing those late nights, those moments I'd chosen myself over their doubts. "You've got this," I whispered, my voice hoarse. My baby needed me to be the woman I'd become, not the girl they'd ignored. I lay back, staring at the stars peeking through the dusk, and focused on breathing. In, out. The pain was a tidal wave, but I rode it, clinging to the truth I'd built. I was more than their afterthought. I was a creator, a fighter, a mother. My hands pressed against my belly, feeling her tiny movements, and I made a silent promise. "You'll never feel invisible," I told her. "Not with me." Headlights flickered in the distance, faint but growing closer. Hope surged, then faltered. What if they passed? I tried to sit up, waving one arm, my other hand gripping the grass. The pain was blinding now, each contraction stealing my breath. I didn't know if help would come, but I knew I'd keep fighting, because that's who I was. Not their shadow, but a woman who'd built her own light. The headlights grew brighter, a distant hum cutting through the crickets, but my body screamed with another contraction, forcing me to collapse back onto the grass. The road trip to Marla's award ceremony had been a disaster from the start, and now, stranded and in labor, I replayed the tension that had built up in that suffocating car. It was supposed to be a quick drive, a few hours to some fancy venue where Marla would bask in yet another spotlight. I'd agreed to go despite being 8 months pregnant because Velma had framed it as a non-negotiable family moment. But the whole day had felt like a ticking bomb, every glance and word laced with the same old disdain. That morning I'd packed light, a water bottle, my dead phone, and a thin sweater, knowing I'd be crammed in the back. Velma had been barking orders as we loaded the car, her voice sharp. "Karen, don't slow us down," she'd said, eyeing my swollen belly like it was an inconvenience. Norris, already behind the wheel, just nodded, his jaw tight. Marla, in a sleek dress, was fussing with her speech notes, while Duane sprawled across the front seat, earbuds in, ignoring everyone. I'd climbed in, my back aching, and tried to make myself small, already dreading the hours ahead. The car was a pressure cooker. Marla's voice dominated, rehearsing her acceptance speech, pausing only to snap at me when I shifted to ease the Braxton Hicks contraction. "Can you not make this about you?" she'd said, her eyes narrowing. Velma, twisting to face me, added, "It's one day, Karen. Be a team player." I bit my lip, my fingers digging into the seat, and nodded. We'd stopped once at a gas station, and I'd waddled to the bathroom, splashing water on my face. In the cracked mirror, I saw a woman tired of being erased. I'd whispered to my reflection, "You're stronger than this." But back in the car, the dynamic hadn't changed. Norris drove faster, urged by Velma to make good time. Duane complained about the music. Marla kept preening. And me? I was just baggage, my contractions growing sharper, my pleas for a break brushed off like lint. Now, on the highway's edge, those moments felt like a prelude to their ultimate betrayal. The approaching headlights flickered, and I forced myself to sit up, waving weakly, my other hand clutching my belly. The pain was constant now, a vice squeezing my core. I didn't know if the car would stop, but I knew I couldn't rely on my family. They'd made their choice, speeding off to Marla's moment, leaving me to face the scariest day of my life alone. The vehicle slowed, gravel crunching, and a pickup truck's silhouette emerged from the dusk. My heart pounded. Hope, fear, everything at once. Another contraction hit, and I gasped, doubling over. I didn't have time to wonder if this stranger would help or hurt. All I could do was hold on, my hands pressed to my baby, and trust the strength I'd built to carry me through whatever came next. The pickup truck's headlights bathed me in light, and I squinted, one hand raised, the other braced against the grass, as another contraction ripped through me. The betrayal on that highway wasn't just them driving away, it was the culmination of their contempt, laid bare in those final moments before they left me to fend for myself. The car ride had been a gauntlet, each word and glance a jab at my worth, and now, abandoned, I replayed how it all unraveled. Back in the car, the air had been thick with Marla's self-importance. She'd been adjusting her earrings, practicing her smile in a compact mirror, while Velma coached her on poise. I'd been in the back, sweating, my hands clenched to hide the tremors from the worsening contraction. "Can we pull over soon?" I'd asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Marla's head snapped around, her eyes like daggers. "Karen, seriously? I'm trying to focus." Velma, without looking back, chimed in. "You're fine, just sit still." Norris grunted, his grip tightening on the wheel, and Duane, earbuds out for once, smirked. "Always gotta make a scene," he muttered. I tried to breathe through it, staring at the passing mile markers, but the pain was relentless. My water hadn't broken yet, but the pressure was unbearable. I shifted, accidentally knocking Duane's gym bag to the floor. "Watch it," he snapped, shoving it back. Marla sighed dramatically. "Why did you even come if you're gonna be like this?" Her tone was venomous, like my existence was the problem. I opened my mouth to respond, but another contraction stole my words, forcing me to grip the seat, my nails leaving crescent marks in the fabric. Velma finally turned, her face a mask of irritation. "What's wrong with you now?" she demanded. I gasped. "I Think I'm in labor. The car went quiet, but not with concern, with annoyance. Norris glanced at Velma, who shook her head. You're not in labor, she said flatly. You're just stressed. Stop exaggerating. Marla scoffed. This is so typical, always stealing the spotlight. Duane laughed, a short, cruel bark. I felt my face burn, tears pricking my eyes, but I wouldn't let them fall. The final straw came an hour later. My contractions were undeniable, coming every 5 minutes. I was panting, clutching my belly when I begged, Please, I need a hospital. Marla whipped around, her voice icy. You're not doing this now, Karen. We're almost there. Velma nodded. We can't miss Marla's moment because you didn't plan better. Plan better? I wanted to scream, but the pain was too much. Norris slowed the car, pulling onto the shoulder. Get out, Velma said, her voice devoid of warmth. You're holding us up. I stumbled out, my legs shaking, and turned to plead. But Marla's window was already up. Her face turned away. Norris hit the gas and they were gone, taillights shrinking into the dusk. Now, on the roadside, the truck's door creaked open, and a figure stepped out, a man, his silhouette broad against the headlights. Another contraction hit and I groaned, doubling over. I didn't know if he'd help, but my family's contempt had left me here, and I'd face whatever came next with the strength they'd never seen. The truck's headlights cast long shadows as I lay on the grass, my body racked by another contraction, the pain so intense I could barely see the stranger approaching. The betrayal of my family abandoning me on that highway paled against the terror of this moment. Delivering my baby alone, with no help, no hospital, just me and the raw will to survive. Their taillights were long gone and I was in full labor, each wave of pain a reminder of their cruelty and my own resilience. The contractions were relentless now, barely a minute apart. My water had broken earlier, soaking the ground beneath me, and the pressure was unbearable, like my body was splitting apart. I clawed at the grass, tearing out clumps, my breaths coming in short, desperate gasps. You can do this, I whispered to myself, my voice shaking. My baby was coming, and I had no choice but to be enough for both of us. I tried to remember the birthing classes I'd taken, but panic scrambled my thoughts. Focus on breathing, they'd said. In, out. I forced myself to inhale, but another contraction hit and I screamed, the sound swallowed by the empty highway. My hands fumbled to my belly, feeling the tightening, the undeniable push. I was alone, completely alone, and the fear was a weight crushing my chest. What if something went wrong? What if I couldn't do this? I shifted onto my side, gravel biting my hip, and propped myself on one elbow. The stars above blurred through tears, but I blinked them away, refusing to let despair win. I thought of my sketchbooks, those late nights building my art, my life, despite their dismissal. That same grit was all I had now. We're gonna make it, I told my baby, my voice steadier. I didn't know how, but I'd fight for her. The urge to push came, sudden and overwhelming. I bore down, my body taking over, instinct overriding fear. My hands shook as I reached down, feeling the crown of her head. The pain was blinding, a white-hot fire, but I pushed again, screaming into the night. Minutes stretched into eternity, each push a battle, my strength waning but never breaking. I was drenched in sweat, my throat raw, my fingers digging into the earth for leverage. Finally, with one last guttural cry, I felt her slide free. My daughter. I pulled her to my chest, her tiny body warm and slick, her cry piercing the silence. I sobbed, relief and love flooding me as I wrapped her in my sweater, my hands trembling but sure. She was perfect, her tiny fingers curling against my skin. I checked her breathing, her umbilical cord, my mind racing with what little I knew. She was alive. We were alive. I lay back, cradling her, my body spent but my heart full. The highway was still empty, the stranger's truck now a faint outline in my peripheral vision. I didn't know if he'd stopped, if help was coming, but in that moment it was just us, me and my daughter, proof I was stronger than their neglect. The pain lingered, but so did my resolve. They'd left me to break, but I'd built a miracle instead. My daughter's tiny cries anchored me as I lay on the grass, her warm body pressed against my chest, wrapped in my sweater. The highway was silent except for her soft whimpers and my ragged breaths, the pain of delivery still pulsing through me. The truck's headlights, which I'd barely registered in my struggle, now steadied, and the stranger's silhouette moved closer, his boots crunching on gravel. This moment, a kind stranger's arrival, changed everything, pulling me from the brink and exposing the depth of my family's betrayal in stark relief. "Ma'am, you okay?" His voice was low, cautious, with a faint southern drawl. I looked up, blinking against the light, and saw a man in his 50s, wiry, with a flannel shirt and a baseball cap. His name, I'd later learn, was Elton. He knelt a few feet away, hands raised to show he meant no harm. "I saw you wavin'." Then heard the screamin'. His eyes widened as he noticed my daughter, her tiny head peeking from the sweater. "Lord, you just had a baby?" I nodded, too exhausted to speak, my arms tightening around her. Elton's face softened, and he pulled out a phone. "I'm callin' 911, hang on." His fingers moved fast, his voice steady as he gave our location, a mile marker on this godforsaken stretch of road. "Woman in labor, just delivered, needs help now." He hung up and grabbed a blanket from his truck, draping it over us. "You're gonna be fine," he said, his tone firm but kind. The blanket's warmth eased my shivering and I managed a weak "Thank you." My mind was spinning. Relief, fear, fury. My family had left me here knowing I was in labor, prioritizing Marla's ceremony over my life, my baby's life. Elton's simple act of stopping, of caring, threw their cruelty into sharp focus. He didn't know me, yet he'd done more in minutes than they had in years. "You got a name for her?" Elton asked, nodding at my daughter, keeping me talking, grounded. I looked down at her, her eyes squinting against the truck's lights. "Jessa," I whispered, the name I'd chosen months ago, after a character in a book I loved. He smiled. "Good name, strong, like her mama." His words hit deep, a reminder of the strength I'd tapped into alone. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder. Elton stayed close, murmuring reassurances, his presence a lifeline. As the ambulance pulled up, paramedics swarmed, their voices clipped and professional. They checked Jessa's vitals, wrapped her in a proper blanket, and helped me onto a stretcher. I clutched her, refusing to let go, my body aching but my heart steady. Elton stepped back, tipping his cap. "You take care, Karen," he said, somehow remembering my name from my frantic babbling. As the ambulance doors closed, I realized what he'd given me, not just rescue, but clarity. My family's abandonment wasn't a fluke, it was who they were. They'd chosen Marla's ego over my survival, and that truth burned. But I'd survived, delivered Jessa, and now, with help from a stranger's kindness, I was ready to face them. Not as their scapegoat, but as a mother who'd fight for her daughter's future, and her own. The ambulance's siren faded as we reached the hospital, Jessa cradled against me, her tiny breath steadying my own. After the doctors checked us, Jessa healthy, me bruised but stable, I sat in a sterile room, the weight of my family's betrayal sinking deeper. They hadn't called, hadn't checked on me, likely still toasting Marla's award. The confrontation that followed days later was my chance to expose their hypocrisy and demand accountability, my voice no longer silenced by their neglect. I was discharged after 2 days, Jessa in a donated car seat, my body sore but my resolve ironclad. I stayed at a cheap motel, unwilling to face home yet. My phone, charged now, had no messages from Velma, Norris, Marla, or Duane, just one from a neighbor asking if I was okay. I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering, then dialed Velma. She picked up on the 3rd ring, her voice breezy. "Karen, where are you? You missed Marla's speech." I clenched the phone, Jessa sleeping in my lap. "You left me on a highway, in labor." Silence. Then Velma's dismissive huff. "You were fine, weren't you? Don't make a big deal out of it." My blood boiled. "I delivered my daughter alone, a stranger saved us. You almost killed us." She started to interrupt, but I cut her off. "I'm coming over. We're talking, all of us." That evening, I walked into Velma's house, Jessa in my arms, my heart pounding but my steps sure. They were in the living room, Velma on the couch, Norris in his recliner, Marla scrolling her phone, Duane sprawled with a beer. Marla glanced up, smirking. "Look who's back, playing the victim." I ignored her, setting Jessa's carrier on the coffee table, my eyes locking on each of them. "You abandoned me," I said, my voice low, steady. "I could have died. Jessa could have died." Norris shifted, avoiding my gaze. Velma folded her arms. "You're being dramatic, Karen. We had somewhere to be." Duane snorted. "Yeah, Marla's thing was important." Marla just shrugged, like it was nothing. I pulled out my phone, showing a photo of the highway, time-stamped, and a hospital report I'd requested. "This is evidence. I've spoken to a lawyer. Abandonment, neglect, endangering a minor. It's serious. I could press charges." Their faces changed. Velma's mouth tightened. Norris's eyes widened. Duane sat up. Marla scoffed, but it was weaker. You wouldn't. I will, I said, my voice cutting. Unless you own this. Apologize, mean it, and change. No more golden child nonsense, no more treating me like I'm less. I leaned forward, my hand steady. Jessa deserves better than your toxicity, and so do I. Velma tried to deflect, muttering about family unity, but I held firm. This isn't unity. It's cruelty. Decide now. Norris finally spoke, his voice gruff. We're sorry, Karen, we didn't think. You didn't care, I corrected. Marla rolled her eyes but muttered, Fine, sorry. Duane nodded, mumbling agreement. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. I picked up Jess's carrier, my heart lighter. This is your one chance. Cross me again, and I'm done. I walked out, their stunned silence behind me. They'd underestimated me, but I'd shown them who I was. A mother, a fighter, no longer their shadow. The motel room's fluorescent light buzzed as I settled Jessa into her car seat, her tiny fingers curling in sleep. But my mind was still electric from confronting my family. Their half-hearted apologies lingered, hollow against the warmth I found the next day, with people who'd become my true allies. That moment, sharing space with those who saw me, stood in stark contrast to the cold dismissal of Velma's living room, grounding me in what family could mean. I'd called my friend Tammy, a freelance writer I'd met through a design gig, who'd been checking on me since the hospital. Come over, she'd said, no hesitation. Her apartment, a cozy mess of books and plants, was an hour's bus ride away. When I arrived, Jessa in my arms, Tammy pulled me into a hug, careful not to jostle the baby. You're a badass, she said, her eyes fierce with pride. Her roommate, Elton, not my highway savior but a sweet, gangly barista, peeked over, grinning. That's a cute kid. You name her yet? Jessa, I said, settling onto their worn couch. Tammy handed me a mug of tea, the steam curling between us. Tell us everything, she said, and I did. The highway, the birth, the confrontation. Tammy's jaw clenched when I described Velma's dismissal. Elton shook his head, muttering, That's messed up. Their reactions weren't performative. They listened, really listened, their eyes locked on mine, no trace of the indifference I'd grown up with. Tammy leaned forward, her hands fidgeting with the coaster. You stood up to them. That's huge, Karen. I shrugged, my throat tight. Had to. For Jessa. Elton nodded, setting out cookies from a tin. You're like a superhero. Most people would have crumbled. Their words sank in, filling cracks my family had left. I'd spent years chasing Velma's approval, but here, I didn't need to perform. We talked for hours, Jessa dozing through our laughter and rants. Tammy shared her own story, cutting ties with a toxic ex, and Elton admitted he'd left a controlling family too. Chosen family's better, he said, nudging my shoulder. I looked at Jessa, her chest rising and falling, and felt it. These people, this moment, were my home. Not the house where Marla's trophies lined the shelves, or where Norris's silence spoke louder than words. Tammy insisted I stay the night, setting up a makeshift crib with pillows. As I lay on their couch, Jessa beside me, I replayed the contrast. My family's living room had been a battlefield, every word a weapon. Here, Tammy's teasing, You're gonna raise a little artist, I bet. And Elton's quiet offer to make breakfast felt like safety. They didn't see me as less than, they saw me as Karen, the woman who'd birthed a child alone and faced down her demons. The next morning, sunlight streamed through Tammy's window, and I felt lighter. My biological family had tried to break me, but these allies, my chosen ones, reminded me I was whole. Jessa stirred, her tiny hand brushing mine, and I knew I'd build a life where she'd always feel seen, surrounded by people who chose us, not out of duty but love. Jessa's soft coos filled Tammy's apartment as I packed our things, my heart still warm from the night with my chosen allies, but my mind already steeling for the next step. Establishing boundaries with my family wasn't just a one-off confrontation, it was a battle to redefine how they'd treat me and Jessa, and it started with navigating their predictable attempts to dodge accountability. That afternoon, back at my own place, I faced their first test, and I was ready to hold the line. My phone buzzed as I unpacked Jessa's diapers. Velma's name flashed on the screen. I hesitated, my thumb hovering, then answered, keeping my voice steady. What? Velma's tone was syrupy, like the highway never happened. Karen, we're having dinner Sunday, you should bring the baby. No mention of the apology, no acknowledgement of their cruelty. I gripped the phone, my knuckles whitening. You mean Jessa? The daughter you left me to deliver alone? Silence, then a huff. "Don't start that again. We said sorry." I could picture her, arms crossed, lips pursed, expecting me to fold. "That's not enough," I said, pacing my tiny living room. "You don't get to pretend it didn't happen. If I come, we talk about it, really talk. Or I'm not coming at all." Velma stammered, caught off guard. "Fine, we'll discuss it," she muttered, then hung up. Sunday came, and I walked into their house, Jessa in her carrier, my spine straight. Norris was at the table, reading the paper. Marla lounged on the couch, scrolling her phone. Duane slouched in, smelling faintly of beer. Velma bustled in the kitchen, her smile forced. "There's my grandbaby," she cooed, reaching for Jessa. I stepped back, my hand on the carrier. "Not yet, we're talking first." Marla rolled her eyes. "Here we go." I ignored her, setting Jessa's carrier down and facing them. "You abandoned me in labor. That's not a misunderstanding. It's unforgivable. If you want to be in our lives, you earn it." Norris shifted, uncomfortable. Velma's smile faltered. "Karen, we're family. Let's move on." I shook my head. "Family doesn't leave family to die. Here's the deal. You respect me, you listen, and you stop treating Marla like the only one who matters. Or we're done." Duane snorted. "You're milking this." I turned on him, my voice sharp. "I have a lawyer's number. Want to test me?" He looked away, muttering. Marla tossed her hair, but stayed quiet. Norris finally spoke, his voice low. "We hear you, Karen. We'll try." It wasn't perfect, but it was a crack in their armor. I stayed for dinner, but kept my distance, watching their micro moves. Velma's tight smile, Marla's subtle jabs about drama. When I left, I felt the shift. They'd try to slip back into old patterns, but I wouldn't let them. At home, I rocked Jessa, my resolve firm. "We're building a new life," I whispered. My boundaries weren't just words, they were a fortress, protecting us from their toxicity. Each time they pushed, I'd push back harder, ensuring Jessa grew up valued, not erased. Jessa's soft gurgles filled my apartment as I sat at my desk, sketching a logo for a new client, the weight of my family's half-hearted promises still lingering. Their dinner had been a step, but I wasn't waiting for them to change. I was redefining my legacy for Jessa, using the strength I'd forged to create a life free from their toxicity. That week I took a bold step, channeling my art and resilience into a project that would ensure my daughter grew up knowing her worth. I'd been freelancing steadily, but now with Jessa in my life, I wanted more than gigs. I wanted impact. I'd been sketching ideas for a community art program, something to help kids like me, the ones overlooked, find their voice through creativity. The idea had simmered for years, born from those nights hiding sketchbooks from Velma's indifference. Now it felt urgent. Jessa deserved a mother who didn't just survive but thrived, and I'd build a legacy that wasn't tied to my family's name. I started small, contacting Tammy, who knew people at a local youth center. "This is brilliant," she said, her voice crackling over the phone. "I'll hook you up with Gwen, the director." Gwen, a no-nonsense woman with a warm laugh, met me at a coffee shop, Jessa dozing in her stroller. I pitched my vision, free art workshops for kids, teaching them to express what words couldn't. I was the kid nobody saw, I told her, my hands steady on my portfolio. I want them to feel valued. Gwen flipped through my designs, nodding. "This could work. We've got space, some funding. You lead it." My heart raced. This was real. Over the next days, I poured myself into planning, sketching lesson ideas, securing donated supplies. My hands moved with purpose, the same focus I'd had delivering Jessa alone. Each step, emailing sponsors, mocking up flyers, felt like reclaiming the name my family had diminished. Karen wasn't their afterthought. She was a creator, a mother, a force. I thought of Marla's trophies, Velma's fridge covered in her clippings. My legacy wouldn't be framed for their approval. It would live in the kids who'd learned to draw their dreams, in Jessa's future, free from their shadow. One night as I worked, Jessa fussed, and I rocked her, humming. "You'll never have to prove you're enough," I whispered. My program wasn't just for others, it was for her, proof that our worth didn't come from their praise. The first workshop was a week away, and I felt the stakes. My family might never value me, but I didn't need them to. I was building something bigger, a community where no one felt invisible. Tammy stopped by, helping me pack art supplies. "You're changing lives," she said, squeezing my shoulder. I smiled, my chest light. This was my name now, Karen, who turned pain into purpose, who'd ensured Jessa grew up surrounded by love and possibility, not neglect. As I taped up a flyer, Jess's tiny hand brushed mine. I looked at her, my heart full. My family's legacy of favoritism stopped with me. I was writing a new story, one stroke at a time, for us. The morning light filtered through my apartment's blinds, casting soft stripes across Jess's crib as I watched her sleep, her tiny chest rising and falling. The art program's first workshop was tomorrow, and the buzz of purpose still hummed in me. But sitting here, I felt something deeper settle, a quiet peace, born not from my family's grudging apologies or my new projects, but from knowing my worth was mine to define. This moment, this reflection, was where I finally let go of their shadow and claimed my own light. I leaned back, my sketchbook open to a half-finished drawing of Jess's face, her features soft in pencil. I'd spent so long chasing Velma's nod, Marla's respect, Norris's attention. Each snub, every "you're fine, Karen" or "don't make it about you," had carved a doubt I'd carried like a weight. But the highway changed that. Delivering Jessa alone, surviving their betrayal, wasn't just a story of pain, it was proof I didn't need their validation. I'd saved us, I'd built us. I thought of the confrontation, their forced apologies. They'd try to slip back into old patterns, but I wasn't the same Karen. I'd set boundaries, started the art program, found allies like Tammy and Elton. Each choice was a brick in a life where Jessa would never feel less than. I didn't need Velma's fridge or Marla's spotlight. My worth wasn't in their eyes. It was in Jessa's first smile, in the kids who'd draw tomorrow, in the strength I'd forged from their neglect. I stood, tucking Jessa's blanket around her, and walked to the window. The street below was quiet, a new day stretching out. I wasn't angry anymore. Anger had fueled me, but peace sustained me. I was enough, not because I'd proven them wrong, but because I'd proven myself right. Jessa stirred and I smiled, my heart steady. "We're free," I whispered, and for the first time, I believed it. Have you ever had to break free from someone else's expectations to find your own peace? I'm Karen, and sharing this journey, from that highway to this moment, has shown me how powerful it is to choose yourself. I'd love to hear your stories in the comments. What's a moment where you stood up for your worth? If my journey resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear that it's okay to define success on their own terms. Your support means everything, and together, we can inspire each other to keep pushing forward. This isn't about revenge, it's about reclamation. You don't need anyone's permission to shine. Take that first step, however small, and trust your light is enough. Thank you for being here with me and Jessa. Let's keep building lives where we're seen, valued, and free.